Each call has a purpose. Your one call is a broadcast. Hey, I'm over here. Two is friendly. Three means go away, or I want to fight. Four call, I surrender. I'm running away. I want nothing to do with the situation. And my favorite call, the F call, or as I like to call the giggle. I was fortunate enough to be able to work with Docky on his guide. So please check it out. It's going to have all the damage numbers, the total hits to kill for everything, ins and outs, stuff that I won't be covering in my guide. But I do want to show you the moveset. Using the alt attack, the different jump attacks as well, it increases what you can do with the Troodon and the situations you can fight in. You also have jump attacks, more than just the basic bite. You can either look all the way up and bite and all the way down and bite, or if you bind your alt attacks, it's going to make it easier to trigger one kick or the other. You can also alt attack, then pounce immediately afterwards. I call this the launch pounce, and I'll go into a little bit more depth later about its uses, what you can do with it. But first, I want to show you how far you can just pounce normally. The Troodon has two different pounces, a standing pounce and a crouching pounce. And your height and distance is dependent on your aim. The higher you look, the higher you jump. You can also pounce up to 90 degrees to either side. Now, when you're moving, I'll go over that part shortly. Crouching adds a lot of distance to your pounce. So even when you look up, it will still give you a little bit extra horizontal distance, letting you hit targets up in trees or flying pteranodons. For now, I'm going to use a Teno to kind of show you visually how far you can go. You do the crouch pounce, it adds an entire body length for yourself. And this does apply vertically as well. Your speed is also going to affect your pounce. If you're sprinting, you're not going to be able to get your maximum height. You also won't be able to pounce as far to the sides. When you trot, you get the same distance as if you were stationary pouncing, but you're limited to 45 degrees left or right. For walking, however, you can go almost 90 degrees to the side. And the crouch walk is exactly the same. But the benefit of doing the crouch pounce is you get the added distance. And if you get good with movement, as I'll show you later, you can add a crouch pounce right after a sprint. You can also chain alt attacks and pounces for as long as you have stamina. As long as you have both feet on the ground, you can do an alt or a pounce. Timing does vary a little bit by your angle, though. The number of latch slots a target has depends on its size and species. For the Teno actually has 6. 2 on either flank, 1 behind the tail, and 1 behind the head. In order to reach these slots, you have to come in at a higher angle. You see raptors do this by jumping and then pouncing, but because we have more directionality with our pounce, we don't have to jump. And because we don't have to jump and we can use our full distance at any angle, we can pounce over obstacles. So even if somebody's camping a rock, there are cases where you can and should jump over something to pounce them. If they're down below you, however, you can pounce down. So if you're chasing a target down a hill, you don't have to worry about launching yourself to Timbuktu and breaking your legs. There are some times where you're not going to be able to land a successful pounce. Base pounces are notorious for getting Troodons killed. It won't let you latch, but it still does some damage. But if you pounce through the head and not actually hit the slot, it's not going to do any damage, and you'll just pass safely through. The instant pounce is whenever you're right up alongside the body, and even under the tail, you'll be able to get latched onto one of the flanks. But it won't put you on the head slot or the tail slot, but you could pounce through the tail to get onto that back slot. I've talked about the parry before. The pounce will cancel attacks if you have the right timing. You have to be landing your pounce as they're making an attack, or immediately afterwards to put them into a stun. If you do it too early, or they attack just afterwards, you will die to their attack. There are some other things you can do with crouching and pouncing, sprinting, and all that. You can slide pounce. The slide pounce is easily done just by turning your mouse quickly to the side, waiting for the model to start to drift, and then pouncing. There's also the new crouch to sprint animation. You can burst into your top speed at max acceleration, unhindered for a small distance. This enables you to not only be able to sneak up in water, but also be able to use water and pounce through it, as the water does not hinder our pounce distance. It is quite literally safer to pounce out of shallow water than it is to attempt to sprint. You can also chain your alt attacks, including your jump kick, in with your pounces. The extra little kick and extra little bite damage that you get with the alt attacks at stage 3 adds a surprising amount of damage. And because it allows you to latch on, it also envenomates the target. If you try to do the kick or the bite too late, however, you're going to end up stuck in an animation unable to pounce. The nice thing about using a launch pounce is it quickly offsets your character model before you pounce. So oftentimes, people won't be able to see exactly where you're at or what angle you're pouncing from, just because of the sudden movement. Troodon, however, only can apply Venom through its pounce. None of these bites, alt attacks, or kicks will actually increase the Venom. There are 3 stages to the Troodon Venom. From your pounce until the next stage is roughly 6 seconds. If you do it too early, you might reset the stage and start over. Each stage will slowly increase the multiplier of which all your base damage is increased by. Once the target is in stage 3, you have a 3 times multiplier on all of your base damage. A pounce comes out to about 100 points per, so it's a good way to guesstimate how many attacks it's going to take to kill a target. In order to get somebody to stage 3, you deal about 136 points of damage across those 3 pounces. From that point on, 100 points per. Stage 3 will only last 45 seconds base. Once the target goes purple, the timer begins. Now I'll speed this up so you don't have to sit through it. I do like the funky beat the Troodon makes with its pounces sped up. What do you guys think? However, it is extended by every single pounce that you do within those 45 seconds. So in this case, I had landed 11 pounces in those 45 seconds, which extended my time by 11 seconds. So the total timer is going to be 56 seconds for this stage 3. The more Troodons and the more Pounces you get off, the longer that increases by. Getting this guy into stage 2 twice, 136 points each. Add that to the 14 Pounces made in stage 3. That will give me a total of 1,672 damage, give or take. There's a lot of different ways to kind of control your movement. If you're on mouse and keyboard like I am, you have WASD and you have your mouse. Which one you end up relying mostly on for your turning is going to affect a lot in terms of your ability to dodge, your ability to set yourself up, and it even goes as far as to dictate how efficient you are with your speed. The sharper your turns, the more speed you end up losing. There is like an optimal turn radius for every single speed in terms of not only how tight you can turn, but how slowly you can turn while retaining or maintaining your maximum or that current speed. Being able to swap between the two, depending on what's kind of needed for the situation, takes time because it depends on what kind of terrain you're on. It depends on what you're fighting, what you're trying to do, if you're with pack mates. But for now, let's just show what the difference is for the different kinds of movement. Let's say that I'm only sprinting the entire time. I'm not going to be letting go of my shift key. Or if I do, it'll be for brief moments of time. But I'm just going to sprint and turn with my mouse here. I often call this the sprint lock. Non-stop sprinting will waste your stamina, but also your targets if your target is faster or more mobile, because it prevents them from being able to build as much distance as they would like to be able to turn around and, kind of control the pace of the fight. Being stuck in a slide obviously kills your speed and you have to quickly build it back up. And for Troodon, it's not too bad, but often that's going to be the moment that desync, quote unquote, will kill you. And it's because, well, when a very fast moving target that's hard to see is suddenly very visible, it becomes much easier to hit. This is the most common type of movement you see with players just in general. They only hold the sprint key, which is fine, but it really depends on what you're playing and what kind of movement you're using. It has its benefits, but most of the time, if you're going to be reliant on just your speed instead of your speed and mobility, you're going to end up getting hit a lot more often than you think you should be. I'm not saying that just sprinting is wrong or it's bad, but there's a lot of issues if you rely only on it. Just like if you only rely on WASD for your turns, because just like the issue with only holding sprint, whenever you make a sudden directional change, your speed momentarily drops, which can help with some turning and zigzagging, as I call it, because it's a little bit clunkier than doing an S or like a serpentine. You can control the slides a little bit better, but one issue, at least I find with it, is I tend to overturn. So I don't turn laterally away enough to get away from that Carno charge hitbox. So oftentimes, I'll either get hit in the tail or die immediately. And you can often make the mistake of not turning sharp enough or enough in one direction. You have to juke Carnos. Carnos don't have good turning speeds. So you have to abuse that if you're being targeted by anything that's faster than you. I mix in a lot of speed changes. One of the nice things about sprint to trot and trot to sprint is the ability to control your turn radius, and it lets you dodge later and with a little bit more control. And this is because it moves your hitbox forward and backwards very, very sharply. So I can use it to stop short of a Carno charge, to turn myself away. And the best part is, because I'm not holding sprint the entire time, I can conserve stamina while slowly whittle down whatever's chasing me. When you're fighting big things like Carnos or something like a Raptor that has its Pounce, you want to burn out their stamina. And this is one of the easiest ways to do it, but you can get caught in the overdodge like this, where you end up rotating back to put your hitbox right back where you were trying to get out. The reason why I'm using Carno so much is because I know Troodon players struggle with them the most, because they also have the most, I guess, controversial hitbox, because it is an active hitbox. Now with the changes, we're going to see what ends up happening. But the whole point of bringing up the charge and the hitboxes are the safe zones and the danger zones. Danger zones are places you should be rotating away from. So in the case of a Carno charge, you want to go towards its tail to make it turn so the charge cannot initiate. But if you stay too close to the tail, there's the chance of him trying to turn around and launch an alt bite to the side. So in order to mitigate this, you stand off, just off kilter of the tail, either on the left or the right side, so you can force him to turn one way or the other. And then you just react and counter rotate. And sometimes that speed change will send you forward, even though you're underneath in the Carno hitbox. At least on your screen, because remember, what the server sees and what you see and what the Carno is seeing is going to be two different things. Once you get good at kind of knowing what the distance is and what that hitbox registry for the charge is, which is right about at the shoulder, you can quite literally pounce off to the side and land behind the shoulders. If you do it too far forward, you'll either die or you'll land a parry. Staying behind the Carno the entire time just to show you what happens if you rotate to his nose or that danger zone. You just will not have time to dodge or react even if you use a speed change because you are in his area of control. Now, this is a big shout out to Turkish Delight and Frollo. These guys brought me into a small little community of people that have been helping me out fantastically and helping me get better at both the content creation and my Google Gremlin. And I died a lot to those Carnos, so I'm sure you guys want to see me actually win a fight. Whether you think this was a good fight, bad fight, I'll leave it up to you. And yes, I'm counting as a 1v1 because just like I said at the beginning, Frollo dies in the first 15 seconds, so it's a 1v1, I don't care. The big difference that you'll probably be seeing with the way Turk plays his Carno and the way my buddies play their Carno is he knows and he relies on the drift charge, the slide charge, the cancel charge. So he has turned the Carno into a much better brawler than most people are able to play it as. And you have to match the pace or beat it. The only way to control the pace of these kind of fights is to stay super close to the Carno. Because if he's able to get that charge distance, I'm going to have a much harder time to dodge it because he can turn a little bit better than most other Carnos when they're just straight charging. See what I mean? That charge is so hard to see when it's actually initiating. It's hard to see which way he's actually turning because of the way the server's registering his body model. One of the nice things about a fast-paced fight, if you're able to set the pace yourself and control it, against things like Carno, Raptor, things that should be trying to run you down, they'll often tunnel vision just focus on trying to hit you, whether that's with a bite, an alt bite, or something else. Every time they alt attack, they start bucking, running around, wasting stamina trying to deal with you, the more opportunities that are going to present itself to you. And never underestimate the power of a little kick. Being able to hit twice where normally you'd only be able to hit once can do a lot for you in just these 1v1 fights. Bursting a little bit harder and a little bit faster. Now, let's go to the next bane of the Troodon's existence, the Pachy. Pachy's hurt. They do go bonk, right? People complain that the hitbox is just too long on those rams, those ult attacks, etc. There's the animation to hit and the animation to reset to idle, or is what some people call just the cooldown. The window to be able to counter a Pachy attack is very small, but it gets more and more obvious as you start to play against them more and more. So the best way to hunt Pachys is to let them try to hit you first. It's a very, very risky game of chicken. And don't be afraid just because you missed one opportunity to pounce that you have to somehow rush the next one. You can take your time in between the stages and even in your final stage. Nice thing about the latch mechanic, it'll cancel out things like the Pachy's ram or even the Raptor's pounce. You can now use that to help your group hunt things like raptors and Pachys. By keeping somebody latched at all times, it limits what some people can do. Now, the beach doesn't have a lot of trees, and we all know that trees and things that are green will, ruin everybody's player experience, right? In the past, sure, bushes would knock you off and you'd be stunned, and it was frustrating for raptors, for Troodons. But there are mechanics to the pounce and the envenomation where you can dismount in under a second. So even if you're in a heavily wooded area, you've got plenty of time. And if you're in a wooded area, what you want to do is get somebody stuck in an action or a cooldown, because they're naturally the best time for you to land a hit anyways. Using things like your calls, running through bushes, certain shrubberies, using sound will also present opportunities if you're solo or if your pack is small, or if somebody's camping something like a tree, something like water. Use noise to your advantage. The whole point of the Troodon Venom is they can't see you, so they focus on being able to hear you. So use that reliance on sound to your advantage. And even if they can see you because of terrain or they're on a rock or looking under the fog, just move. Make them move their camera more and more, because the more somebody has to turn to look at you, the harder it's going to be for them to actually hit you. The Jiraiya you hear screaming in the background, yeah, that's Seb. He just likes making noise sometimes. Pachys don't have a lot of health, so you don't have to pounce them too many times, right? But they're still difficult fights because they are relatively mobile. They're meant to play very defensively. Another hard matchup, at least for a lot of Troodon players and especially Raptor players too, is the Teno. And it's because I don't think people understand what the true danger and safe zones really are for the Teno. The Teno's tail slam is realistically the hardest one to deal with, but its kick and its tail slam can knock you off even while you're latched. And the reason being is you are latching during the attack animation, and some of those special attacks are non-counterable. So, with the tail slam and the kick, you never want to be chasing into the tail. Instead, you want to be chasing towards the head on either side, because it's either going to force the Teno to turn towards you with its head to ult attack, which, if you have good distance, you don't have to worry about that too much. Or it's going to have to turn its tail towards you in an attempt to hit you with a tail slam. Now, sometimes, depending on what distance you're doing the parry at and what the angle is, sometimes you'll still get caught in an ult attack with that face pounce. in this case, the reason I didn't die is because my body was shunted forward enough into the Teno during the pounce that he only alt-attacked my tail. That's why you don't see me bleeding. And just like with Pachys, Tenos I play as a reactive counter. I wait for them to swing, I wait for them to miss, or I try to bait something, and then I try to punish them. It doesn't always work. Depends on how passive a Teno is and what kind of attacks they like to rely on. But generally, you're more mobile than them anyways. You're faster. They're not going to really be able to outrun you. So you need to force them into a rhythm of your choosing, whether that's making them burn out stamina very, very quickly so you can rest yours. It just kind of depends on the situation. But you want them to react to you. Once you start to learn what the pounce timing is from pounce, latch, dismount, and when you can repounce, you'll start to be able to burst and do a lot of damage, especially into stage 3. Now, even though we can pounce through the tail, we can't pounce onto the tail to hit that back slot. Now, unlike the Carno, where we want to go to the tail, if you run after the tail on a Teno, you'll get slapped. That's pretty much all I have for right now. I hope this was insightful enough for all of you guys. The next class will be about growing your Troodon, mutations, and actual hunting grounds and things like that. Huge shoutouts to Frollo, Turkish Light, Jace, Aaron, Ruthie, Connor, C4/Seb. Y'all are great. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay trashy. And by the way, I have a Discord link in the description, by the way. I'll see you guys there. Mwah.